Sonic the Hedgehog 3 is directed by Jeff Fowler and stars Jim Carrey, James Marsden, and among others. And in this story, it is the third film of the Sonic movies, the live-action Sonic movies that came out in 2020 with Sonic the Hedgehog, and then a couple years later we had Sonic the Hedgehog 2. And in this story, it deals with Sonic and Tails and Knuckles, who end up discovering that there's been another hedgehog that's been around for a while, named Shadow, who is trying to pretty much like get revenge over some personal stuff that's happened, and he ends up teaming up with, as you see from the trailer, Dr. Robotnik comes back, and he also teams up with his grandpa that wants to seek world domination. Now here's some backstory. Now, growing up, I never really got a chance to really play much of the Sonic the Hedgehog games. Over the years, I have come to play a little bit of the original game on the Sega Genesis through emulators and also on the hardware itself, but I haven't really been familiar with the overall lore of the story or anything, but I have at least gotten to know the characters from like other sources of media that I've seen and everything, and being able to like see the impact that it has on the video games with Sega and on top of the franchise itself as a whole. I can definitely see that Sonic has left a huge impact and is definitely considered one of the greatest franchises along with Mario as far as like classic game and everything. And so when the first movie came out in 2020, I was skeptical, but as I've discussed in that movie, it was a big surprise. And I was really interested in seeing where it was going with this franchise, especially with Jim Carrey coming back into his old days with doing his classic comedy and stuff. Like, he just makes those movies just so much fun to watch because of how much energy he still has and everything. Like, he reminds me of so much with Ace from the Ace Ventura movies and everything, and just the love and the attention to detail they have from the source material. You can definitely tell with these movies as they keep going along, because even with the second film that came out that I really enjoyed, it shows that they're really pushing their more of trying to explore stuff from the games that we've seen, and on top of just bringing just really fun family adventure type of films. And I did actually get a chance to see the Knuckles TV series before watching the new movie. And I gotta admit that one could have been better. It was a decent show, but I felt like it was a little too sidelined with a lot of the stuff that was involving with the human characters in that one, instead of really focusing on Knuckles himself. And so going to this one, I kind of had like just some open expectations. I was interested to see what they were going to do, especially having Keanu Reeves voicing Shadow and everything, which is a big plus. And then also having Jim Carrey coming back once again, because there were things I was hearing back in 2022 where after Sonic 2 came out that he was pretty much retiring. And coming into this one, I was glad to see that he was playing one of his most iconic characters, coming back as the villain again. And not only playing as Dr. Robotnik, but also as Grandpa, and you get a double dose of Jim Carrey. And after upon seeing the film, I can honestly say this is actually now my favorite of the entire film series. This is everything that I really loved from the first two movies, but also really ups it to a lot of things that not only felt it very emotional, but also very heartwarming and just funny as ever. And just everything that you wanted to see out of the Sonic franchise is definitely here. And so to give my pros out of the way, I thought the cast in this were all fantastic. Ben Schwartz, who voices Sonic in this, is great as usual with his comedic timing and everything. Idris Elba coming back as Knuckles, and then I forgot I forgot who voiced Tails, but everyone did a great job with the voices, and especially Keanu Reeves. Like, he was the biggest standout, being that very serious type of role. Because I actually read that they didn't want to give Shadow any kind of jokes or anything, so they just wanted to keep him very serious. So it really worked for that vibe, and he really plays it so fantastically in this. And you also have, of course, Jim Carrey coming back, and he does, not only does he shine once again as Dr. Robotnik, but just the chemistry that he has also with his grandpa, where it's also himself, is just not only funny to watch, but this movie just kept me so much smiling throughout, because every time he's on screen, it's such a blast seeing them two go in head to head and get into any kind of rivalry or any kind of like that kind of like grandpa grandson type of vibe. I really enjoyed. And then the returning cast members that come back too are great. James Marsden as usual. And then you also have Kristen Ritter, who comes in to join, and she was good. That's playing like the one that's kind of running the military organization stuff. And then one of the biggest things I got to really appreciate the most is how the movie deals with the whole aspect of it being like a teamwork, and even some touching some stuff that involved with friendship and family and love and all that. It all comes together with a lot of parallels, because it gets into a really great deep backstory that I got to really get into, especially when we get involved with Shadow, that explains about why he's doing what he's doing. And I can't go into too much detail because it is very, it's spoiler heavy, but the way it plays into him, where we find out like where he comes from and stuff, you really feel bad for the guy, and you can really see why he's doing all that he's doing. And it actually really comes in a gear where the stakes actually really get high in this to the point where I'm not going to go into, like, I'm going to avoid details, but all bets are off on this one, surprisingly. And then on top of that, the CGI is also great as usual, with being able to blend all the facial features and stuff with all with the way the hedgehogs look and everything. And then the action scenes are really top notch. You know, with all the fun fast motions that they do with all the action parts. And there's even some parts in the action parts that were actually giving me some like Dragon Ball Z type of vibes. And I don't know if that was just me. I don't know if this is prominent in the games, but this is like the closest we'll probably ever get to seeing a proper Dragon Ball Z come to life. Well, other than maybe Man of Steel in some regards, which I can see parallels. But with this one, they really take into that advantage, and it really kind of feels like this is something like a lost Dragon Ball Z anime, like a Sonic the Hedgehog anime come to life, you know, in a good way. And so there's more and more I can really go into detail, but this movie is just everything that I really wanted to see so much, and it sets up with some really interesting, cool post-credit scenes that makes me wonder where the franchise is going to go at this point. It's really great to see that video game adaptations are still making a big kick these days, because we've seen some really good ones make a comeback in the last few years. I'm really glad to see this is the franchise that's really keeping it going strong. And so there's more going into detail, but I don't really have any flaws for this movie, because if there was any kind of minor things, I either overlooked it or didn't really see much of it. And so with that, this is going to be on one of my favorite films of the year, and I'm going to give it a phenomenal grade on the Film Freaks meter. And so for those of you who've also seen Sonic the Hedgehog 3, let me know in the comments of what you thought about it, and also the other films, and if you played the games as well. And thank you so much for watching, and happy holidays, Merry Christmas, and I'll see you in my next review. I'll see you later.